So I said that once I reached 20,000 subscribers, I would do a Draw My Life, and here it is. I also apologize in advance for my drawing because I am really bad at drawing. I don't know how to draw, so I don't know how this is gonna go. We'll see. So I was born on March 10th in Vancouver, BC, which is Canada, for those of you that don't know. And my mom and dad and I lived in a house on the water, and we had this golden retriever named Bailey, and I remember he would sit on me when he got jealous. And I also remember we had this grapevine, and he used to eat all the grapes off of it, but that's about it. I don't really remember too much about him, but everything was good, and we were all really happy. And once I got a few years older, we moved into a much smaller house, which happened to be down the street from my grandparents' house. And this was really convenient because I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house growing up, so they've only lived like 10 houses away my whole life, which is really, really nice. But shortly after we moved, my dad decided that this wasn't what he wanted. He didn't want kids or a family life really, and he wasn't happy, so he left. And that was that. I don't have any relationship with him. He was living in Peru, but I think he lives actually back in Vancouver again, which is kind of weird. Maybe I'll run into him one day. But now it was just me and my mom, and that was okay because she's always been the only person I've ever needed. She is the best mom and dad and everything I could ever ask for in the entire world. She's the most amazing person on this planet. I might be biased because I'm her daughter, but I swear, my mom, she is incredible. And since my mom was a single parent, she had to work, so I spent the majority of my childhood at my grandparents'. I didn't mind it at all because my grandma and I would do super cool science experiments. She was a scientist, so she had all these science supplies and everything. We'd make like those volcanoes that explode, and we'd mix together different things to see their reaction. And she even got a microscope, and I'd look at bugs and stuff under the microscope, and I absolutely loved it. And my grandpa would read Harry Potter to me every night before bed, so it was a pretty good deal. I really liked staying at their house. A few years later, my mom met someone who made her really happy, and they ended up getting married. And I got to be the flower girl at the wedding, so I was happy. And a few months after that, my sister was born. And I didn't really like this because before that I was an only child, so I was kind of used to getting all the attention, and now she was getting all the attention. So I guess I was a little bit jealous. But my stepdad and I never really got along, so I always kind of felt left out at home and would go to my grandparents instead. And my grandma would take me to all my classes and activities and everything like that. School, everything. She would even make me breakfast every morning. I would scoot her down first thing in the morning, and she would just have breakfast waiting there for me. And I didn't mind school at all when I was younger, even though I was a year younger than everybody else because I skipped a year of preschool. So school was fine, but for some reason I always felt a little bit different. Kind of like I didn't belong. I don't know why, but I've always just kind of felt out of place everywhere in my life. But when I was 10 years old, my baby brother was born, and because I was so much older than him, I had to look after him a lot. And I remember the first time I changed his diaper, I didn't really know what to do. I'd never changed a boy's diaper before, and he peed on my face. But he was really cute, so it was okay. But now it was my stepdad, my mom, me, my sister, and my brother. I had been saving up for my entire life. My whole life I'd always wanted a puppy. So finally I had enough money, and I remember going and getting one, and he was the cutest puppy on the planet, and I loved him so much. And I had him for a couple of months, but because he was a puppy, he was a lot of work, and he would pee on the floor sometimes, and my dad didn't like it. So one day when I was at school, he sold him, and I remember coming home being so sad because I'd wanted a puppy for so long, and I finally got one, and now he was gone. But who knows, maybe I'll get another puppy now. After grade 8, I changed schools and I ended up going to this private school where you had to wear a uniform and everything. And I was really excited, but when I got there, the girls ended up not liking me so much for no reason. I don't know why. They just didn't really like me. And I was bullied, so I ended up not liking school at all. I never wanted to go. And my mom was like, well, you can't just not go to school, so tell the principal, because we'd already paid for tuition and everything. So I ended up writing a letter to the principal telling him about the situation and asking him if I could get half of my tuition refunded, and he said, okay, fine, you can leave. I don't know if we ever got the money back. I think we did, maybe, but I don't know. I was just happy to leave that school because I really didn't like it. So after that, I switched to a public school, which was near my house, and it was a massive school. There were like thousands of kids that went there. And I didn't really know anyone, so I didn't have any friends, but I made friends pretty quickly. And I even met my first boyfriend there, and we dated for about 2 years, which was a really long time in high school. But after transferring there, I got my first job as soon as I was legally old enough. I remember I even applied when I was 13, even though you have to be 14, because I wanted a job really bad. And that was at McDonald's. And I actually really loved working there. I remember I would make apple pie McFlurries, and they were delicious. I also loved working in the drive-thru for some reason. I don't know why, I thought it was fun. But I think it was a really good first job. So I was happy with school and work, but at home it was kind of a different story. My stepdad was always angry, and he treated my mom and I extremely poorly. So no one was really happy at home ever. And finally, my mom decided that she had had enough, and she kicked him out of the house. I still remember that night. She kicked him out, and he was gone that night, and he didn't come back. And my brother and sister still see him on weekends, but I have no relationship with him. And after that, my mom was so much happier, and that made me happy because my mom means everything to me, and I just want her to be happy. So once again, it was me and my mom, but this time we had my brother and my sister. So our little group was growing. But I still had no idea what I wanted to do, and as I got older, I felt more and more lost. And I kind of just felt like I didn't belong, and I began to develop anxiety, and I also became really, really sad. And it almost felt like there was just this dark cloud over my entire life, and it made me not want to do anything, and I lost a lot of weight because of it. And since I was sad all the time, I also lost a lot of friends because people don't really want to hang out with you if you're just sad all the time. But because all I would do is stay at home and study and do my homework, I got really good grades, so that was a bonus. As grade 12 came, I started applying for different universities, and because my grades were so high, I got accepted into all of them. And I decided to go to the University of Alberta to kind of get away from Vancouver and see something new. And I'd never been to Alberta before, and I didn't know a single person there, so I was really nervous. But I actually ended up liking it a lot, even though it was like minus 40 for a couple weeks there. I didn't have that many friends there though, so I would spend my spare time making funny videos of myself. And I never posted these videos anywhere. I would just watch them myself, and I don't know, they really entertained me, and I had a lot of fun making them as well, so I did that for a while. But after exams were over, I flew home, and as soon as I got to the airport, I knew something was wrong because my mom, she looked really upset. She almost looked like she'd just been crying. And as soon as we got in the car, she told me that my grandma had been diagnosed with late-stage colon cancer. And I just remember feeling like completely numb. In that moment, I couldn't even move because my grandma meant the world to me, and I couldn't imagine having to live without her. So after this, I transferred to UBC, which is in Vancouver, so that I could be closer to my grandma, and I spent as much time as I could with her. And when I wasn't with my grandma, I was researching alternative cancer treatments and different natural remedies. And I found a lot of really interesting things, but I didn't focus on school at all, and because of that, my grades obviously suffered. So I decided to switch to the University of Calgary to try and concentrate on my classes, even though at that point I just didn't want to be in school at all. I was just in school because that's what people told me you were supposed to do. So I still had no idea what I wanted to do, and I felt the most lost I'd ever felt in my life. And right before I came home for Christmas that year, my grandma passed away. And that was the hardest thing I have ever been through in my life. And I miss her every single day. And that made me feel even more lost and upset, so I decided to quit my job at the time and drop out of school and come home. And I was just so sad. I really couldn't do anything, and I had no idea what to do, and I knew that school wasn't working out, so I decided to sell some old jewelry that I had and go backpacking around Australia for a month. And although it was extremely spontaneous, it was the best thing I could have done. And for the first time in a really long time, I felt happy, and I began to feel like myself again. I'm so glad that I went there. But when I got home, I got a job and decided to take a year off of school and just try and work and figure out what I wanted to do. And a couple months after I started working, this guy sent me a message on Twitter, and he seemed like a really nice guy, so we started talking. He lived in Toronto and I lived in Vancouver, so we couldn't meet or hang out, but after I think about a month, he finally came to Vancouver and we ended up going out for dinner. And I remember just being so nervous and happy at the same time. But he made me so genuinely happy, even though we barely even knew each other. And the more I got to know him, the more things I loved about him. He was weird like I was, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel different or alone. I felt like there was someone else that understood me and loved me for who I was. So we started dating, and he's the one that introduced me to YouTube, and he actually told me pretty soon after we started dating that he thought I'd be great at making videos. At first I laughed it off, but eventually I decided to give it a try because I really had nothing to lose, and I am so glad that I did. So now he's moving to Vancouver, and who knows what's gonna happen next? I have no idea. But I've learned that it's okay not to know, because sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them. I never would have thought in a million years that I would be sitting here making this video, but here we are. And I want to thank you guys so much for supporting me. Your comments honestly do make my day. They make me so happy. But that is it for now, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I will see you next time. Bye guys!